I'll just be transparent. I've had a lot of frustration and anger at my own educational orbit. Because at 40, in my 40s, I'm 46, I've had to undomesticate, unlearn so many of the harmful behaviors that are just passed on, right? Yeah. So that soul frequency that you're talking about, it emerges in my belief system as we reclaim the super being that we were born as, who didn't know good, bad, better, worse, black, white, Christian, Muslim, Jew, this, that, gay, straight. It's like we can undomesticate and then boom.
Welcome, tribe. I'm Maya Rose.
And I'm Gerald Rogers. We're about to embark on another mind-expanding episode where we dive deep into the realms of psychedelics, sex, and the superconscious.
This is a transformational experience of healing, manifestation, increased clarity, flow, and alignment.
So join us on this sacred journey as we receive the codes of transformation from scientists and psychonauts, shamans, tantra masters, mystics, and more.
Together, we'll unravel the secrets of plant medicine, sex magic, and other tools to tap into higher states of consciousness.
So why are we here? To answer the call, to share our passions and be advocates for alternative healing.
So get ready for a ride that transcends the ordinary and leads you to the extraordinary, because living a legendary life is not just a choice.
It's a sacred adventure. I cannot tell you how excited I've been for this conversation with Alok Appadurai. You know how there's certain people that the moment you meet them, there's like this spark of energy and there's like, there's so much energy. Like, oh my gosh, where have you been, Alok? Like, where have you been? Oh my gosh. Like, I don't even know what we're going to talk about, but I know it's going to be juicy. I know it's going to be soul expanding. I know our minds and hearts are going to be so big after this conversation. So welcome, Alok. So glad to have you here.
My absolute honor to be here. I said the same thing to my lovely lady, Caitlin. I said yesterday I got connected to literally an instant soul brother. I was like, there he is. I see him.
Yeah, it really feels good. I kind of like joke that my primary role on this planet is I'm a soul collector. I'm just like going around and looking for soul family, and I'm gathering the tribe and I'm pulling them together, and I'm like creating these amazing experiences for us to meet soul to soul and heart to heart. And so I always get excited when I meet a soul brother. I'm like, oh, I found you. I found you. Finally, I found you.
Well, you're one of those soul magnets, Gerald. It's no surprise. You don't have to collect. They're all coming towards you just because of the vibrational frequency that you emit. And so it's like, of course, you're just a soul magnet, my brother.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think a lot about this idea of soul frequency. How we each have like unique like frequency. Like when we're in our deepest authentic truth, when we're in our most unapologetic expression of who we are, there's a signal that we send out from our heart that is totally unique to us. And it magnetizes all of the people and opportunities and resources that we need to fulfill our purpose and mission. And what's interesting is I think most of us, myself especially, I spent most of my life having a distortion around my soul frequency. I would wear these masks. I was inauthentic in all these different ways. Like it took me a lot to actually come to the point where I was like so good with me that my frequency was so clear that all of a sudden all the right people began magnetizing. What are your thoughts on that? Of like having such a pure soul frequency that our purpose unfolds naturally?
This is amazing. The notion of soul frequency, thank you for saying it like that. I love that concept. What I find is the path to finding the authentic soul frequency that you're speaking of is a path of undomesticating ourselves from all the rubble that's been poured on our soul since we came out of the womb. We were this, I call them super beings, right? I got a year ago, 65,000 words poured out of me in 5.5 days. Source gave me the title of the book, the chapter headings, and literally it just vomited out of me, and it's called super beings. And we are born as super beings. We're born perfect. And then humanity, culture, society starts dumping all this rubble on us. And then we started going, well, wait a second, in order to make it in this whole rubble society, I got to be like this. And we start pouring on all these masks. And so as adults, I say to people, the first step is you got to get rid of the rubble. You got to undomesticate yourself from how everybody told you you're supposed to be. And what emerges is what you've called soul frequency, your authentic thing.
How do you do that? How do you undomesticate yourself? Like I also use the word sometimes rewild, which is kind of like another thing. It's like rewilding or undomesticating. How do you do that when like we've been taught so much through society to conform, to fit in, to like match? Like there's so much pressure to to be who we're not. Like how do you do that? How do you undomesticate yourself?
You know, and that's what a phenomenal question, right? Because I'm still figuring that out in my own life, right? But the big piece that I started doing was I literally just started, Gerald, I just started going through every aspect of my life, right? Whether it's my relationships, whether it's my physical health, whether it's my relationship with money, whether it's my religion, my political affiliation, right? All of that. If you just start, if whoever's listening, you can go through every part of your life and ask one question. Who taught me what I believe about politics, religion, sex, culture, food, anything? Just who taught me? That one question will literally start, oh, right, my father told me that if you don't go to church on Sunday, you're going to hell. Okay, got it. That's simply a set of ideas. And what I say to people is begin to understand and discern what is actually God's source universe, originating truth, versus what is something where another human has come in the way. So when I was 13 years old, Gerald, my father's from India. He's Hindu Brahmin. My mother is from rural upstate New York, Bible Baptist Christian, right? You know, we got polytheism, we got monotheism, right? We got idolatry, we got non-idolatry. And as a young boy, it was confusing. Like, no matter which side I agree with, there'll be a billion humans on the other side that tell me I'm wrong. And so this work, the undomestication, is the work of transcending the duality of right, wrong, good, bad, better, worse. And in that moment, at 13, kid you not, I was so damn confused about what I was supposed to believe about religion and God and gods and this and that I finally just whispered to God. So I didn't even know what I was doing, but I just said, I'm really confused. A billion humans over here are telling me this. A billion humans over here are telling me this. Can I just have a relationship directly with you? And then I listened, and Source was like, yes. I'm like, so, and then I was like, do I have to have any humans between you and me? No. Do I have to convince anybody else that what you're telling me, what I'm developing here, is how they should live? No. It's like, that was 13, changed my whole life, right? So undomesticating myself from the book and the religions and the politics and all this, the how for me was simply, who taught you that? And is it true?
It's amazing that you started that process at 13. I was so deeply entrenched in my programmed identities until my mid-30s. I was so wrapped up into trying to prove my worth through my religious checklist and through my being a good boy to get the gold star on my forehead. I was like fighting. My ego was fighting for approval for this idea of who Gerald was on the planet. And I was like almost 40 before I realized everything I was doing was total bullshit. Like it was like what have I been doing my whole life? Like it was the revelation when I finally look in the mirror and realized I am not anything like I thought I was. That's not me at all, right? Oh my gosh.
I mean, this is about, like, you know, I mean, you and I talked about, you know, being a man and finding our masculinity, right? Like, hello, we have to undomesticate ourselves from all the garbage that men folk pile on each other, objectification of women. How does that transform sex and pornography and kind of all those things are just domesticated into us as normal. As normal. And I've had a lot of, I'll just be transparent, I've had a lot of frustration and anger at my own educational orbit, because at 40, in my 40s, I'm 46, I've had to undomesticate, unlearn so many of the harmful behaviors that are just passed on, right? So that soul frequency that you're talking about, it emerges in my belief system as we reclaim the super being that we were born as, who didn't know good, bad, better, worse, black, white, Christian, Muslim, Jew, this, that, gay, straight. It's like we can undomesticate, and then boom, that ping just comes through. I was just in Antarctica to be with 150 leaders who care about climate. And prior to that, I sat in ceremony privately up at the trees that I was telling you about. And I made a decision of who I was going to be on that boat, on that expedition. And what you're talking about, that heart ping, that soul frequency, like everybody knew who the fuck I was, not because there was some bio that was handed out that guy's done some pretty cool stuff or whatever. It was like just my state of being. I invite anybody listening, you come to that soul frequency that Gerald talked about and find that authentic ping by removing all the rubble that everybody told you about how you're supposed to be and who you're supposed to be and how you're supposed to show up, how you're supposed to dress, how you're supposed to eat, how you're supposed to pray, right? People will feel the authenticity. And in a world of AI and all these things, authenticity is like it's like a chorus that people just experience being in your energy.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. And it's true. Like we trust authenticity. Like we yearn for authenticity. We crave that. And I saw this quote just yesterday on Facebook. It's like, authenticity is the easiest thing to fake. Right. Yeah, all these people, like they're sharing these vulnerable stories, but they're sharing it with the intent to manipulate or like to get people to like buy from them and all these other things. But I really love like this journey of like awakening to like who our soul really is and what our soul is really about. There's actually, psychedelics have played a huge role for me in that, because psychedelics have given me spaciousness to like question and evaluate and look at ideas and belief patterns and, things that I didn't have the capacity to like see from my own egoic perspective. And during one of these psilocybin journeys, I downloaded this whole process that I call the soul journey ceremony. And so we lead the retreats and our events where we take people through a journey after we drop in with a low dose of psilocybin. We put them in blindfolds, and then I guide them in a hypnotic visualization journey, just unwinding the story of them. Like, what is the story that you have about you? And where did that story actually come from? And who were you before that story existed? Because it's like, I'm good at this. I'm bad at this. I'm great at this. I suck at this. Like, we all have these stories, but where do those stories actually originate? And what the like blank canvas of our soul actually look like, where we're living pure infinite potentiality? And so after going through like this really deep, meditation, kind of going through the little chapters and finding the significant moments and the mentors and the people that began to shape our identity, we wind all the way back to the beginning where we existed nothing as more than just a nucleus in our mother's womb, just like pure potential soul force energy ready to erupt into this planet. Just beyond that, who were we before we even began to take on this physical form? And I love just being in that question of feeling like the spaciousness of our soul before we were limited by our egoic perception of our, like, I really believe our ego serves. Our ego is like such a beautiful place. Sure. How many things our ego does to protect us and to support us. And like, I don't believe in the idea that we're battling against our ego, but it's important to be able to like see and witness that our ego is nothing more than some level of false perception of self. And in realizing that, then we can begin to align and create a partnership with our more sacred self and go through this journey. And then in this whole journey ceremony, this is the other part I want to share, Alok, is we guide people through a breathwork experience. Just imagine this: you're in psilocybin, you're in blindfolded, you're in this like really deep meditation, this amazing soundtrack, and then we start doing breathwork, channeling the energy. Each of these seven chakras. And I Metatron's cube is like my primary like teacher, right? Like there's so much wisdom within Metatron. And I feel like so much of what we teach within our legendary experiences, it's been channeled through Metatron, who is like this bringer of light and wisdom and healing to the planet. There's 7 principles we call the legendary code, and each one of them relate to the each of these different chakras. And so I take them through this breathwork process where we focus on each one of these chakras as like a doorway to power. And the first doorway is the chakra, which is radical responsibility. And we're doing breath work and we're like channeling the energy and we're like breaking through all of our patterns of victimhood, blame, and struggle. And we're awakening to like the fact that we are radically and unapologetically, accountable for the result of our lives. And then after we like pump the energy through that, we break through that door, then we go to the sacral chakra, which is all about purposeful production and feeling the fire for life and this full force energy to create and to build and to bring life to our dreams. And then after we do that, we break through that and we go to like the solar plexus, which is all about emotional sovereignty. Woo! And then after blast our hearts wide open and tap into unconditional love. And then after unconditional love becomes the bridge to the next one, which is actually what we're talking about, which is the fifth principle, which is unapologetic expression. Finding that in our throat, our voice, that soul frequency, and finding ourselves so in tune with who we are that vibration becomes the medicine that our soul is here to bring to the planet. And when we broadcast that fearlessly and unapologetically to the world, then life magically opens up and all these doors emerge. And then we go through never-ending expansion and then connection source. And by the seventh one, boom, everyone's like blasted. And we spend like the next either connected to the fullness of our soul. And it's so magical. But I love just being in the question. It's like, how big is your soul really? If you could release all of the false limit, like what is actually really possible for you? What are the moments for you, Alok, where you've like really been able to see yourself clearly?
I think kind of in the conversation of psilocybin or plant medicines, just to run with that a little bit. I spoke to you the other day about an experience that I had with sitting with our mushroom friends. This was maybe 2 months ago. And as I told you, I have an established practice with these friends of ours.
I love to call them friends. I think that's so beautiful. I'm going to, yeah, I love it.
What else are they?
I know.
They are absolutely friends of mine.
I mean, how else would I describe a being, a creature that is loving, caring, filled with wisdom, always available, never lets me down. So in a recent journey, I saw myself in a way that I have never seen myself, where my dear friends, the mushrooms, took me for the very first time in my life to the quantum field, where everything's happening in simultaneity. And I knew that I was in the quantum field. Like, it wasn't like, am I understanding this correctly? It's like, oh, no, we've taken you to the quantum field. Please pay the fuck attention to what you are about to experience. And in that, Gerald, I saw myself in a way that I hadn't seen myself, which was no body. This thing that you and I see your body right now. You see my body, my mouth's moving, my eyes, this and that. There is no body in the quantum field. You're simply vibration, frequency, color, and essence. And when I say color, I don't mean skin color. I was blue, and my essence was this perfume essence. And my vibration was what it was, clack, 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 right? That's kind of my energy signature. And in the quantum field, even though there's no bodies, I saw my friends. And I don't mean the mushroom. I mean, literally, I saw Steve Bacon. I saw various friends of mine as frequency, as vibration. And that, when I realized, because people talk about we're not the meat suit, we're the soul inside the meat suit, right? Like, that's kind of an idea intellectually. It's now embodied. I'm like, yes, people see this thing, but I'm just the frequency. And you called it a soul frequency. Well, that was one of my grandest seeings of my own self. And it changed my whole life. Because how can you go the rest of your life thinking I'm this thing when you've been to the quantum field and you've been shown you're a frequency, a vibration, an essence, and a color? Okay. So that blew my mind.
I love that. I heard someone speaking. It was actually at an event that Aubrey Marcus was holding, but this guy was speaking about like this idea of frequency, and he was talking about how each of our souls has its own unique sacred geometry. And I loved like exploring that. What does my soul look like as sacred geometry. And it's also interesting too, like having these different perceptions of self while in medicine space. I don't know if you've ever had the experience on psilocybin where you go and look in the mirror. Have you had this experience where you look in the mirror and my face just like morphs, and I see like this little boy, and then I see this like old man, and I see all of the stages in between. I see this powerful warrior king that's just like so unstoppable, and I see this like really frail, like crippled like version of me, and it's like fun just like watching like my face distort and change and evolve like right in front of me. And to be able to recognize like, oh yeah, they're all part of me, like there's this broken, wounded little boy, and there's also this powerful, unstoppable warrior king. And like feeling like the totality of all of these dimensions of my soul.
Yeah, radically powerful. Another moment where I really saw myself, but it was it was one of the most painful and beautiful elements was sitting with ayahuasca, and I had set an intention to ask, where did body shame come from?
Oh,
right? Where did body shame come from? Where did that self-consciousness come from? Right? And I'll just be honest, transparent. Everybody knows I'm an open book, right? It's like where I, like many millions, somewhere the domestication created something called body shame. Insane. It's an insane epidemic that's going on. So I said, I want to understand, where did that come from? I had already scanned because, there'd be sexual assaults and things that occurred in my world, and they always hit really hard. But when I would scan my own journey, like there wasn't anything that would come up. Okay. I'd gone through all the adults from my young years, and I couldn't find anything. And when I sat in my first ayahuasca ceremony, that was my intention, which is, where did this body shame come from? And the medicine took me to the moment in a doctor's office. And I know this is very difficult to hear for people, and I won't go into all the details, and I don't even know that the doctor did anything actually wrong, but I know that the little boy that was in that doctor's office didn't want to be touched that way. And I'll tell you, I saw myself and I understood my entire life, Gerald, from that reveal that occurred through the medicine. Everything, all the relationship problems, like all the things, I was like, oh. And at the end of that ceremony, I saw Caitlin, my lady, and, we went back to our room as we're 3 a.m. We're integrating. We're still, medicine's still doing its thing. But I told her, I said, I understand my life. I understand what's been difficult for me, and I never could understand why. So I will always tip my hat to that grandmother medicine. I didn't want to see it, but she was like, you asked a question, here it is. And it allowed for a release, allowed for a healing. So now I can be a different man in a relationship. So I'm so the intersection of psychedelics and leadership and relationships, I could not advocate for it more strongly.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I think one of the greatest gifts of psychedelics is its ability to help us see the unseen, right? And to see the things that we're hiding from ourselves. Because whether it's like trauma that we've blocked off because we don't want to address it, or if it's like even aspects of our existing self that like are not things that we want to acknowledge. I had this down at Rhythmia too. Like I was on an ayahuasca journey, and how Rhythmia sets it up is they have you focus on specific intentions. And the intention for the first night is, show me who I've become. And I was like just expecting, just because in my psilocybin journeys and other things, like I saw this powerful man that was changing the world, had a big voice, big message. I saw his loving father. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for ayahuasca to show me who I've become, because I was so excited because I was so proud. And then all of a sudden, beautiful grandma Aya, she just like whips my ass so hard, and she like showed me. these corners of my life where I'm disconnected with my kids. I'm not listening to what they're really saying, where my wife has been asking for certain things. And here I like pride myself being such a good lover, but I'm like ignoring and missing clues that she's giving me. And then I'm seeing these places where I've been inauthentic in my work and places where I've failed certain clients. And I'm like, I was like, oh my gosh, and these like parts of me that were just like so painful.
So painful.
So painful. It's like, But on the other hand, like it gave me access to compassion too, because I also got to like see this part of my soul that is like always feared abandonment. And I went back and had this like really tender moment where when I was 14, my older sister committed suicide. She went into our, garage and turned on the car, and she like suffocated by carbon monoxide. And in that moment on ayahuasca, like I got to go and be with her in the car as she's like taking these last few moments in her life and like really feeling what it was like for her in that moment and about what that 14-year-old version of me was like. And I got to like hold her hand and like send her love. She like transitioned out of this life, and it was like these, like it healed something in me.
Yeah.
That I didn't even know needed healing. I didn't know that wounded, broken little boy from 14 years old was still suffering because his sister left him unexpectedly. And I didn't know that what really my sister was looking for, she just was looking for love, and, and it somehow alchemized something inside of me and gave me greater like compassion for my journey in my space. And once again, I wasn't ready to see that. I didn't want to see that, but it was what I needed to see. And I was so good at that. I was so good at that. Yeah. And then I think it's either the second or third night, the theme is merge me back with my soul at all cost. And this is what was valuable about having these like sequential things. At the end of the first night, I was so raw. My soul was like, I had purged so much. I was feeling so like, I was feeling excavated. I was like, I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know what else there is in my tank,
That's right.
But then in this idea of merging me back with in my soul with all costs, it relates to this idea of domestication, where all of us at some point when we were young, there was a moment where our soul decided it wasn't safe to be us. And so we created a separation. We created this false self. We created this false identity. We created like this shield around us, and we abandoned part of us, maybe the most authentic part. And so I love this authentic, this intention that says, merge me back with my soul at all costs. Because there was this moment where I felt the authentic alignment where it's just like, oh, I don't need to apologize for who I am. I don't need to diminish who I am in order to fit within other people's wounds. I love this idea that came to me. It's just like, I noticed that there were certain people when I was around them, because of their triggers and their wounds, I would show up as a smaller version of myself.
That's right.
Right. And I made this decision, which like changed my life. Is like, I will not shrink myself to fit into someone else's wounds.
Oh, I hope anybody listening hit the rewind button and listen to those 5 seconds like 100 times.
I will not shrink myself to fit within someone else's wounds. And that really like made me just open my heart bigger. Whoa. Show up a little bit louder, and not worry if someone else was triggered by the bigness of my soul. It's like, okay, that's your journey to work with.
The bigness of the soul is different than the bigness of the ego. And that when people people are always like, I don't want to toot my own horn. It's like when you're living in your soul frequency, and I want to say a couple things here. There's a phenomenal TikTok video of a scientist who's like doing one of these like experiments, for kids, and they're recording it. And he's got a wooden platform, and it's got an arm with a string, and the string has a ball, and the ball is leaning against a tuning fork that says 440, right, for the frequency. And then so the ball is just leaning on this tuning fork, and he brings another tuning fork just next to it that's 512 frequency, and he starts clanging this other tuning fork. and the ball does not move. Okay. Then he brings a second tuning fork that's a 440 frequency, and he starts clanging the 440, and the ball starts hopping off of the original 440 tuning fork. And I talk to clients and I say, find 440 meets 440, right? The people, like, if you're living in the bigness of your soul's frequency, unapologetically, not playing small to other people's wounds, I'm never going to forget that sentence. That is one of those. I listen, like, if anybody out there, listen for the single sentences that will change your whole life. And that is one of them. Because people here don't play small to other people's expectations of you and this, that. No. Don't play small to other people's wounds. Whoa, that is a big one. So when we meet that 440 meets 440, now the resonance becomes like a symphony, an absolute symphony. When I met you, I was like 440 meets 440. Symphony, Beethoven's symphony could just start happening. Another piece from that I'm just creating off of what you've been saying is out of ayahuasca at Rhythmia, as the night would complete, right? And they'd wake us up and bring us back into this realm to some degree. I would see Caitlin from across the room because we would sit separately for our journeys. And I'm just going to be very honest and raw. I knew that I was in a different state of being with her. And I don't mean like plant medicine, whatever. I meant like something was different, Gerald, and I didn't know what it was. Okay. And then we kind of named it, that was my trusting little boy who had put the armor and the shields that the man named Alok has developed out of all the hurts and the traumas and everything, seeing too much alcoholism, too much violence, growing up in a tough fucking neighborhood, having people violate me and do all sorts of crazy shit. We develop armor, particularly as men, and we go out and we're armored up. And my lady had always been asking, essentially, she didn't know how to say it, drop the armor. Drop the armor. And I didn't know how. Like, nobody taught me how you fucking do that, or even that it is true. Those nights after ayahuasca, Gerald, I was like, oh, got it. That's what this is. Now, I want to be very transparent with the audience. I didn't know, like, it still took me like another 18 months to finally actually understand how to really drop the armor inside my home. And I apologized, I'm now apologizing to her for all the years that we were together where I didn't know how to do that. I didn't even know it was happening. So I'm so grateful to that medicine because it allowed me to taste, Alok, this is you without the armor. Thank fucking God.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And that's one of the things we really emphasize when someone does like a hard medicine like MDMA or sassafras is like really reminding them it's like the sassafras, the MDMA, like the hard medicine, it's not actually, it's not what's creating that emotional experience within you, right? It's only activating something that's innate and already inside of you, but it's just been camouflaged by all the walls you built around your heart. And when we can remember that medicine is already exists inside of us, then when we take the medicine, the ayahuasca, the psilocybin, the MDMA, or whatever it is, that just becomes a tuning fork where it's like, oh, this is what it feels like to live with an open heart. This is what it feels like somatically to trust in my body. This is what wholeness is. It feels like as a frequency. And then the integration is like where the work comes. And whether it's, 4 weeks of integration or 18 months of integration or 18 years of integration, it's like practice, like taking that frequency, that remembrance that we have and getting it so that soul frequency becomes who we are naturally.
The conversation around the heart is everything. I mean, I literally believe it's actually literally everything. Like many of us stand for changing the world and wanting to make the world a better place and uplifting humanity. My company's called Uplift Millions, right? And before sitting in ceremony a couple weeks ago, before taking clients to Zion, the night before, as I was prepping for the next day where I would sit myself solo up by the trees, Spirit gave me a 26-minute download. I was telling you about this, and literally it's named. I was told the name of the thing, the transmission you're getting right now for 26 minutes is called the One Practice. That was it. I didn't invent it. I was told that's what this is. And Alok, if you do this one practice for the rest of your life, like your life will never be the same. And it all is the return to the heart in every moment, in every conflict, in every problem, in every challenge, in every interaction, on the airplane, at the ticket counter, pissed off because someone cut you off. Can you come back to the love that's in your heart? And it sounds, these are things, Gerald, that were always like a cliche most of my adult life. Come find love in your heart. And now I'm like, it's the only thing. Like, it's the thing.
Yeah, and it's so important to I think it's actually a gift when we just become aware of how out of our heart we are, when we notice ourselves in anger or trigger or upset or like frustration, and we're like, the moment we step into awareness is like, oh shit, okay. Like awareness, like we talk about, as awareness is the first step of transformation, because awareness is like where we step out of the unconscious reactive mode of just like, operating from our old behaviors to, it's like the consciousness, like, oh, actually, is this what I want to create? Is this emotional anxiety, or is this frustration that I have, or this anger that I'm experiencing towards, is this actually what I want? And then from there, we can go through the steps of alignment to like really intentionally open up. How would you do that? Like, if the moment you recognize that you're angry, you're triggered, you're upset by something, what is your personal practice for going in and opening up your heart and getting centered again?
I mean, awareness being the first one, right? I'm not there. And then from there, it's simply, I believe there's human self, HS, and I believe there's God self, GS, period. And we can't be in both states of being at the same time. And what I was shown in those 26 minutes was simply live from your heart, which is thinking, feeling, speaking, and doing all in alignment from the education that comes from your heart. So what I've recognized, your heart has its own neural networks, 40,000 neurons that have formed their own neural network. It has its own brain, its own consciousness. I now talk to my heart as its own being. It's not a separate, literally, I'm like, heart, you're safe. I love you. Thank you so much for relentlessly every single day of my entire existence. You've been doing work on my behalf. Thank you. I'm so grateful for you. I'm communicating. I literally actually communicate to my heart so that it hears me. And what I've realized is that any thinking, this is what I was told, not realized, what I was told in these 26 minutes is that any creation that comes from my mind, right, likely will not go in a good direction. It likely will lead to fear, worry, anger, anxiety, frustration, insecurity, jealousy, envy, greed, all of that stuff. Literally is all, and sure, the mind can create intellectual ideas and books and all these wonderful creations, but by and large, any creation, thinking, feeling, speaking, doing that comes from here may not go in a good direction. Anything that comes from the wisdom here, we got a different world generating, period. So my process is simply to recognize, oh, right, I'm in my human self right now. And my human self is annoyed with Caitlin, frustrated with my son or whatever, right? And in that moment, I have available, you're wearing a golden necklace. I tell people the story of the golden necklace, right? One side could have HS, one side could have GS on a pendant. In any moment, we have the ability to come back to God's self, flip the pendant, and just go, wait a second, if I was actually functioning with this human being or with myself from the wisdom and love that emerges from my heart, that does not see duality, that doesn't see me as better or worse than any other being, that doesn't see me as the right religion and they're wrong, can we transcend? Right? That's the real journey. If everyone wants to, it's transcending the human malaise of division of good, bad, better, worse, right, wrong. So for me, it's just remembering, oh, I'm in anxiety about something. What is that? Fear, right? We can't be in fear and love at the same time. So, oh, what am I afraid of? Oh, I'm afraid that this client is going to drop off, or whatever the story is. Can I transcend into my God self? It's available like this always. Now, the human self, the egoic mind, will delay this process. It'll want you to stay in that suffering, right? It's like, no, don't go. We like you. You feed on this, right? You feed me. Don't do that, right? So we're just shrinking the length of time between our state of human self state and that shift into God self state. And it's a decision. I find it to be a decision to say, what is my heart's actual truth? And ask it, and your heart will speak to you.
Yeah, I really love building that relationship with your heart and just knowing that when we're in our God self, then it's almost like our heart has this like receiver. It's almost like an antenna that is able to like receive this infinite intelligence. And I think about like how often people get stuck, like they're like so fascinated by AI and like the wisdom and possibility and capabilities of AI. But I think, what if we had that same fascination with HI, with heart intelligence? And
that's right.
Really just like, what if we got so in tune that we became the channel for that infinite wisdom and our God self could like really operate? Oh my gosh. Let's just take a big deep breath in. I knew this would be a juicy conversation. I was so excited for future connections, Alok. I'm so proud of you, proud of what you're up to, proud of the masterminds that you lead and the epic adventures you create and the communities that you build. I'm so proud that your soul is like sending such a clear soul frequency out, and you're just creating so much magic and healing in the world. So, as we wrap up, any final messages from your HI center, from your Heart Intelligence Center that you want to broadcast to the people that are listening right now?
Yeah, the simple thing that's coming to me is that each and every single one of us has access to the most powerful wisdom in the entire world. And it is through what I've now been told is the voice box of the soul. And the soul does not know fear. The soul only knows love, and the voice box of the soul is the heart. And therefore, if we understand this to be true, I invite everybody to recognize this isn't for special people. Everybody was born with this infinite capability, and that's not a woo-woo statement. It's literally the wisdom that has always ever been, and it comes through the heart, and it is the voice box of the soul that does not know fear, division, separation, good, bad, better, worse, right, wrong. So I just invite everybody to transcend the human malaise of division, of all those things of somehow they're other than me, and to start seeing that oneness, that singularity, that collective consciousness that is not some abstract idea. You can tune in. You have the tuning fork. You have the equipment. You have the most powerful technology that's ever been created, ever. You have it. You were not skipped in line on the universe's conveyor belt. Don't think that other people have it and you don't. You do. And when you shift into that heart wisdom, again, what I say to people, what I was told is, Alok, when you fail and you fall off, start again. Don't waste time that you fell out of it. Just start again. Come back to that wisdom of the heart. It'll change your lineage. It'll change future generations, and it'll be your legacy beyond anything else.
Boom. I love that. Your soul frequency is so clear. Hopefully your hearts were ready to receive that message. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you continue to tune into Alok's world and what he's creating. And thank you so much for joining this episode. And for everyone that's listening, please, as we're launching this and getting this frequency out to the world, please share it, please subscribe, please be part of this world, part of this tribe. So much magic to come. And just remember, this is your life. Make it legendary.
Thank you, legendary explorers, for joining us on this cosmic journey today.
Your curiosity fuels our exploration of psychedelics, sex, and the superconscious.
If you're hungry for more, dive into our website and connect with us on social media. All the links are in the show notes.
And stay tuned for our next mind-expanding episode. We can't wait to talk to you again in our next adventure.
Until then, remember, this is your life. So,
make it legendary.